I've got 6 o'clock, so let's call our meeting to order. Would we all please stand? First of all, Bob is here. Brenda, yes. Anna, yes. Katie Lochner, yes. Bill, Larry, we're all here. So let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Folks, I believe we have a pretty busy agenda this evening. So first point of order, I would look for approval of the agenda as shown. You all have a copy?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as shown.
Katie, on the motion.
And I'll second.
Brenda on the second.
Mm-hmm.
Other discussion? All in
Just
approval?
confirming the updated one, that's all.
Yes. Yeah, the amended agenda. You
Yep.
guys are aware of that. Okay, all in favor of the amended agenda as shown, say aye. Wait,
Aye.
wait, we can't do that. We can't do that. We got a roll call. Okay, a roll call vote for the approval of the agenda. Bob, aye. Brenda?
Aye.
Anna? Anna?
She might be muted.
She's muted.
Okay.
Yep, I was muted. I'm a yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0. Our first scheduled presenter is Dave Peterson, Summer Facility Projects, Summer Work for Facilities and Maintenance. Dave, it's you. Possibly.
Well, the main item that we're going to talk about is really coming up on the agenda, Bob, so I don't know exactly how you want to handle that, to be honest with you. That's going to be one of our main projects is the elementary secure entry project. So would you like me to kind of discuss that as we get to it in the agenda, or do you want me to start to cover those bases right now?
Other than that item, is there anything else that you would be forthcoming with on our facility projects? Is that it?
Well, really that's it. I mean, aside from doing some field maintenance, and then the other big item that was board approved was the water softener for the high school, middle school. That actually just got completed at the end of last week. So that project is actually done. We talked about it in our last facilities meeting. So between the dishwasher at the elementary, which was a major project with closing early, we were able to get that done. We were able to get the water softener project done. And now we're really going to focus on, it makes it really difficult not knowing where our programming stands and what parts of the building are being used. So we've really been focusing on the outside of the facilities with softball fields and with the woods project that we have coming up. So we spent a lot of time outside. So we're kind of playing it week to week to be able to determine any bigger projects coming up inside the buildings. So the biggest focus is really going to be that elementary entryway.
Okay, so we'll defer any additional information that you have until we get to that agenda item.
Okay.
Okay. Reports and communication, school board representative reports. Emma, do you have anything for us today? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Yes, I do have a report for everyone today. So I thought I'd start off with talking about AP testing. Last week online, AP Government, AP Calc, AP Literature, and AP Physics students took condensed time tests through College Board online. For myself and other students I've talked to, the testing has gone fairly smoothly, so hopefully for the other students taking AP exams this week, it's the same. On Friday, the elementary teachers partook in a teacher parade. There was a super large turnout, and it was a great moment for students and staff. I think it was a true testament to not only the power of positivity, but also to how great CF teachers and this community truly is. The Canorama's 100th editions are here, which is super exciting. I'm one of the yearbook editors, so I know I've been looking forward to it. Mrs. DeRozier, the yearbook advisor, and Mr. Hodges have coordinated a drive-by distribution event for high school and middle school students to pick up their yearbooks and spring supplements. Seniors will get their books from 4 to 6 p.m. this Thursday on May 21st, and all other students will get theirs next Tuesday, May 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. The annual scholarship award ceremony for seniors has moved online. Huge shout out to Deb, Mrs. Hoffman, and Mr. Hodges for coordinating the whole thing through Zoom. It will be on Thursday, May 21st at 7 p.m. Students' last days of classes are right around the corner, which is pretty crazy. Seniors' last day of content will be this Friday, May 22nd, and their last day will be Friday, May 29th. Grades 6 through 11's last day of content will be on Wednesday, May 27th, and their last day will be on Wednesday, June 3rd. This year was definitely not the ending we were all expecting, but nonetheless, it's been a great school year. And as many of you know, graduation is on Friday, May 29th in the student parking lot at 7 p.m. I'm not going to lie, it's kind of surreal that it's this close. But before the ceremony on May 26th through the 28th, students can sign up for individual time slots at school where they will receive graduation materials such as their gowns, caps, tassels, diplomas, commencement program, parking passes, and anything else they may need. Class President Bryson Felton, Cooper Peterson, and myself will address the class at the ceremony, and an optional graduate parade will follow on the 4th of July route downtown. Thank you to Mr. Hodges, Deb, Dave Peterson, and the school board for pulling together an in-person ceremony while also adhering to the guidelines the state has put in place. Many of my other senior friends across the state do not get the privilege of gathering together at a safe distance. Instead, a link will be sent to their families for a virtual ceremony. Even though this isn't what many of us had pictured, you all have worked very hard, doing the very best you can. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And lastly, sorry, this has kind of been long-winded this evening, but I wanted to say that thank you to all of you, as this is my last school board meeting. Thank you for welcoming me to the table, asking me for my input on behalf of the student body, and smiling/laughing through my sometimes lengthy reports, like this evening. I've enjoyed spending the last 2 years with all of you, and with your help, the future of Cannon Falls Schools is bright. Thank you.
Before Emma goes away, hopefully she doesn't go too quickly, but I do want to thank her for her time and energy and efforts as the student representative on the school board. And we do have a gift for you here that we will be sharing with you as part of your tribute for being on the board. So at some point we will get this to you, most likely during the senior pickup time. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
Great having you on the board.
Thank
You've
you,
done a great
guys.
job, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, I don't think we have any school board committee reports. We'll deal with the negotiations piece in its own separate agenda item at the end of the agenda. So does anyone else have anything to discuss as far as committee reports? Okay, we will move on to administrative board reports. I think that elementary, middle school, high school all has something in your packet to review, but I just thought I would check with you individually. Jen, is there anything you'd like to add to your report or embellish or anything?
No, nothing to add to my report. Just want to, shout out again to the community and to the staff for participating in our staff cruise on Friday. I think it was very well received and mutually liked by students, and really good for staff as well. So I think that is awesome. And, just the teachers are working their tails off right now, and I'm just very appreciative of their continued work. And I feel like we're definitely on our way to finish strong.
Thank you. You have the report in there. Does anybody have any questions for Jen before we move forward? Okay, Tim, do you have anything for us?
No, just been working a lot on the scholarship and awards ceremony that'll be this Thursday. And graduation is, I think, finally kind of starting to form into shape, and we've got some ideas that I think will be kind of neat to put in place.
Okay. Thank you. And again, any questions for Tim?
I have a question about, will the award ceremony, will that be a live stream or just recorded?
It's going to be on Zoom. So I will record that Zoom session as well, so it can be posted online.
And then with Zoom, how do people participate with that? Don't know how that works, I guess.
So I'm going to send a meeting link to seniors and to seniors' parents,
Okay.
probably tomorrow. And I think I increased my my membership so I can have 500 participants in
Wow.
a Zoom meeting. So we typically don't have nearly that many that come to that award ceremony anyway. So I think that should be enough. And if you would like to listen in on that on Thursday, I can certainly send that link to Jeff or to Lori, and they can get that to you so you can listen in and see what's going on with it.
Okay, thank you.
Moving forward, technology. Amy, if you're on, do you have anything to add to it?
Amy's not here tonight.
Okay, please refer to her handout on the enclosed area. Let's see, our activities director is probably not with us this evening. I don't think he officially starts quite yet, but if Reed is on, he can certainly throw his 2 cents in worth now.
I think I can speak to some of those things, as I've been the interim AD for a little while now. Just one big thing that we'll have to do coming up in the next few weeks, and I think this is on our agenda for our cabinet meeting tomorrow, is we're going to need to come up with a plan for what happens after June 1st, as far as activities and meeting the guidelines that the state has sent out for that. The high school league has basically said as of June 1st, it'll be up to individual district, or barring anything new from the governor or from MDE or from the Department of Health, that it'll be up to districts to come up with a plan to meet social distancing guidelines for any activities that are going on starting June 1st.
Okay, thank you. Dave, we'll deal with your agenda item later on in the agenda. So,
Yep.
I've forgotten to mention that anyone who has any questions that they'd like answered during the course of our meeting can certainly contact Lori via email at hanson.lori@cf.k12.mn.us. She'll be taking notes. Anybody wants to email her about any particular item that we can discuss this evening. Moving forward, Superintendent's Report. You've all got a copy of that. Jeff, you're on.
Thank you. One of the items I've already taken care of was a very big special thank you that goes out to Emma Conway for all of her hard work on it as being the student council school board rep. We want to wish her luck in her continued career as she moves on into post-secondary achievements. And the second thing I have on there is the thank you note from the Cannon Valley Senior Center for all of the support that we've provided them over the years. I think I can probably pull that up real quick. One thing I forgot to do. Just kind of a nice letter if you haven't looked at it yet, to the school board and myself from Joyce Fallink, who is the chair of the Senior Center. Just thanking us for going to bat for us regarding the rental agreement with the school. So basically it's a thank you to the school and looking forward to continued partnerships. So wanted to share that piece as well. And then my final thing, as we come up into budgeting season, the state just released their revised budget, which they did in February, but because of the pandemic, they did revise it again. And we are working on getting that set. Normally, we would have it for tonight's meeting, but because of the revision to the revenues and expenditures that are happening right now, we are going to have to wait until the June board meeting to release that. Some of the things that board members should start thinking about as we look at the budget in June is, in the past, the state has dealt with budget shortfalls in many different ways. And those of you that have been around long enough remember, currently we get our funding in 90% we get during the current fiscal year, and then they hold back 10% for the next year, which is really the last part of the revenue from this year. And the way that they've dealt with funding or dealing with their own budget in the past is that they've did an accounting shift where they've sometimes went 80-20 with those dollars, and 70-30, and sometimes even 60-40. And so what that means is that we need to have more cash on hand to deal with that, as we will have delayed revenue coming in. And currently, with our fund balance, we need to make sure that we are watching that closely, or we would have to do some aid anticipation borrowing for the upcoming year if they do decide to go that route. I have not heard anything like that currently, but it wouldn't be a surprise if that is one of the measures that they do to help deal with the budget shortfall at the state. Another area that we may need to consider moving forward is that in years past, especially during the Great Recession in the 2007-2008, is that there was a lot of 0% increases for school districts over a 2 or 3 year period. And so we need to be ready to be prepared to deal with that as well. So just something to keep your mind on as we move forward into this process of how the state's going to deal with our budget shortfall. So I know it's kind of grim news, but I did start off with positive news. So anyway, that's all I have, unless you guys have questions.
Any questions? Moving on. Public input. Due to the data privacy concerns, a speaker may not address criticism toward an individual district employee during public input. Individual complaints should be handled privately. Comments from visitors should be informational in nature and may not exceed 3 to 5 minutes per issue. The board cannot engage in discussion or debate during those 3 to 5 minutes, but will take information and find answers if that is the appropriate measure. As part of this board protocol, it is unacceptable for any speaker to slander or engage in character assassination at the board meeting. And again, you can email Lori at that address I told you for any other public comment. Does anyone in attendance this evening have something they would like to address the board on?
You just kind of start talking.
You can start talking. I'm going to have you raise your audio a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hear you better. Please let us know who you are.
Okay. My name is Riley Bukite. I'm a 9th grade physical science teacher and a 7th grade STEM teacher at the school.
Yep.
And this last month, we had the opportunity to do a virtual appearance with an astronaut. His name was Mark Vandy High. I believe that was a change since the last board meeting. So I just wanted you guys to be aware about that. It went pretty well. We streamed it live on YouTube, and it was a lot of fun to get to know a Minnesota native who was on the space station.
Wow.
Very cool.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we are moving on past public input. Consideration to approve the finance report. Josh, it's in your lap.
Right. Unmute so you don't have to hear my dog snoring and sneezing. The finance report, the top there will be where our cash balance is at right now in our current checking accounts. It goes through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. And as Mr. Sampson had talked about, visually putting together fiscal year 21 budget as we've got new projection models for revenue from MDE. And obviously there's some expenditure issues that are going to be involving to have a little bit of uncertainty at this moment with the COVID pandemic and how things are either going to work themselves back to normal or how they're getting there. But we'll be working on those as much as we can. As he had talked about, there are many mechanisms that the state will have to try to offset some of those costs, and we need to plan for and try to prepare for as many of those as possible as we come up budgeting for fiscal year 21. As simple as the shift of funding from 90-10 to 60-40 or whatever in between that could be means a substantial portion of our funding not getting to the district in a timely fashion. We eventually will see all 100% of our funding, but it may come in prior year, or I'm sorry, the next fiscal year down the road. All that meaning that we would have to find other ways to fund that, whether it be fund balance on hand, which we are very short on, or aid anticipation borrowing or other mechanisms. So just things for us to plan as we're putting together now this fiscal year 21 budget. In terms of this finance report, what you'll see is the cash flow through the end of fiscal year. One important thing to note here is Goodhue County has followed suit with many other counties. Dakota County, has, for instance, is one of them, where they are delaying the penalties for people to pay their property taxes on time. So they've given a little extension without penalty for people who aren't able to make those tax property payments, whether they're just not having the means to do it or whatever it may be. We're not going to know the exact effect on that until we get the report from Goodhue County and how much we'll actually be receiving into our account on those disbursements dates. So what I've done is only included about 50% of what our estimated account coming in from the county would be. So the cash flow on this is lower than what we should be getting, just because I can't really for certainty say we're going to get 100% of our Goodhue County levied funds on time. We will get them, but it won't be on the end of May date when we get our first disbursement, or beginning of June when we normally get our second disbursement. So we've had to account for that and decrease what we'll have for cash on hand. The other thing that would stick out in there, as we've talked plenty about, is at the middle of June is when we typically get our Invenergy funds. Two separate payments, one from Invenergy directly that we have negotiated with them as a 20-year deal. We've got about 7 years left on that. And another portion that is from the city. Between those two, it ends up being about between $300,000 and $320,000, depending on the year and the multiplier on the inflationary portion of it. Other than that, nothing really stands out. When I say other than that, tongue in cheek a little bit, because there's a lot of things that are up in the air going on, both with the county, with the state, and with the federal in terms of funding coming into the district. But as of now, this is as good as we've got. If there are any questions, I can certainly do my best to answer anything that you have.
You don't have a best guess estimate on whether we will need aid anticipation or not?
As of right now, not. In terms of only looking forward to probably about 3 to 4 months. We will have our funding in place through the end of this fiscal year. County receipts will come in. They'll just be delayed. We may not get the full amount of our county until next fiscal year. It'll be booked in the current fiscal year. We just won't have the cash on hand until we get there. So we'll be actually floating the county at that point. And the state won't come out with anything for their shifting purposes, if they do so, until after they've gotten their budget projections done as well, and determining if they need to do anything to the schools for that matter. Essentially right now, going forward, I would say not having to do any cash flow borrowing, but it's not that it would not be a possibility. It certainly is something that could be possible in the near future for us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Other questions for Josh? Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the finance report as shown. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Anna. And
I'll second.
Second is that Bill?
Yep.
Thank you. Other discussion? So a yes vote will mean the approval of the finance report. Larry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and Katie,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Brenda,
Yes.
Bob, yes. That passes by a 6-0 vote. Okay, moving along the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted under one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any particular item, it can be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Of the 4 items on our consent agenda, we have nothing for resolution of gifts, nor do we have anything on personnel that I've seen. So why don't you take just a moment, and when you're ready, we'll be approving the minutes of the April 27th meeting and the monthly bills. If you have any questions on either, please let's hear them. And I would look for a motion whenever anyone is ready.
I'll make the motion.
Larry on the motion,
I'll second.
second by Katie. Other discussion? A yes will be confirmation of the consent agenda approval. Bob, yes. Brenda,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote. We have no old business. Under new business, consideration to approve the updated dates in the strategic priorities document.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, give me a, sorry. With the board passing the initial action plan back before the pandemic hit, obviously with the pivot during the pandemic, we didn't have a chance to start addressing some of our strategic planning action items. And so at this point, I would like to have the board reapprove the action plan again with some updated dates that you should have had a chance to take a look at in this document. And some of the items have been moved to a better place in time to address some of these issues. And some of these issues are coming up here right away starting in June as relative to our next item. So basically I'm looking just for a reapproval with the new dates on here.
I have a question.
Yep.
What column are we looking at for date change? Because the one that's highlighted, in some of them, it looks like there isn't a change. And for some of them, the date change suggestion, the farthest one out doesn't match up with the overall target completion date.
Which one are you looking at specifically?
There were a couple. If you look at first SMART goal 1.1, do
Yep.
any of those dates change? Because
No, but I think we added, if I remember correctly, and maybe Lori can chime in because we were both working on this. I think we added a target completion date, and maybe that should have been highlighted in that. With some of the ones that weren't changed, we added one thing in there. It's most likely a completion date because I'm not sure if the completion date was in there currently.
Lori?
Correct, that's correct.
Okay.
I just highlighted the target completion date. That was never in there.
And so, sorry for that confusion, I guess, if you will, on a couple of these. Is that kind of the same issue with the other one, Anna?
Well, if you go to 1.3, it looks like the last target date is 5/21, but the target completion date is 6/21.
Yeah, maybe we should change that to a 5
Yes.
there.
And so the hopeful being done with the outward communication on that and having digital signage in place would be hopefully in May of 21 with the completion of the SMART goal here by 6/21 with the implementation of that. I don't think that one originally had a date either on it.
Then for 2.2, it's another, it looks like the last date listed there is 2/21, but the overall completion date is 10/21.
Yes, because in 21, we had a discussion around that being a bonding year. Trying to think of what the thought was on having that be part of 10/21. I think starting the overall process with them being in session starting in 21, because obviously the legislature just ended here recently, and that would give a chance for us to communicate with legislators starting in February of that cycle and then ending prior to them going into their next session in 22. Because legislators do come in throughout the period, throughout the summer and the fall, looking for input from school boards.
I think it might be helpful on here to include notes like that, just because when we're looking at it without being part of those discussions, it didn't make sense to me why that date wouldn't match with the activities that are underneath the goal.
Sure.
Okay, so what exactly are we updating those requests from Anna or those clarifications?
We can certainly add in those notes on that for the clarification piece. If you guys want to pass the updated version, we can certainly add those in.
Sure.
And I have a couple more without matching dates.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want, do we need to, do you want me to go through them, or should we table this to do the updates?
Why don't you go through them as long as we,
Okay.
you know, we're on a path here. Let's take care of it.
2.3, we've got a 7/20 for the last date, but then target completion of 10/20.
Right. Some of those, if you look up here at the top, I think the target start date was 7/20, and you would need more than a month or so to get those up and running. So at the top, Anna, if that helps, there's a target start date and the
Okay.
target date change with the starting date, and then the completion date
Okay.
over here on the right.
Okay. Then let's see. Oh, actually, if you go back up to 1.4, again, like, were these changed? Because it looks like, I mean, I get now that it's a target completion date, but in the change column, it lists 3/20, but the original date was 3/20.
Right. With all of these items, well, since I began here, I've been engaging with all of them. And so not really knowing what date to put on there, but I think the biggest thing is probably the end date here with 6/20, and we could certainly highlight that as a change as well.
It was 1.4. Is that what you wanted?
So we don't need to have 3/20 in both spots. I don't think it was over on the other side, is what the situation was.
Mm-hmm.
So since it's there, we'll do it like that, Anna?
I'm sorry, I was looking at my own copy, not the.
Oh, okay. I just took it out of the highlighted section because it's already over in the.
Yeah, it was just confusing. I didn't know
Sure.
if something got missed or what. And then for 3.1, this is one where we have a start date after the target completion date. So we have a 6 of 20 as a start date, but then a completion date of 5 of 20.
Mhm.
Oh, I bet you that should have said 5 of 21.
On this one
Mhm.
Yeah.
there.
So you believe that change would be to 5 of 21?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think we've got a similar issue on 4.3, where we've got a start date of 10 of 21 and a completion date of 6 of 20.
I think that should have been 10 of 20,
10, 20, yeah.
2020.
What?
No,
Over to the left there, Lori.
not
and then-
health fair during.
Right, and then it should have been 6 of 21. So it should have been reversed.
Right there.
No.
No, in the,
Yeah, on the far side.
yep.
Okay, 2021. Correct?
Yep.
That'll be 10, 20, 10, 20, 20.
Yes,
For
10
the
of
start date.
2020.
Yeah, well,
We were talking about health fair in less than 6 months.
Right, so depending, not really knowing what's happening this fall.
I think it all would, yeah.
So then that should
Oh.
be, so you could do it one of two different ways. You could put it down as 10 of 2021 and then 6 of 2022.
Well, the student health services, I think what that was, is those are in place or will be now.
Yeah, those resources are already in place as of this spring. And so then that one's fine.
Yeah.
But we wanted, the goal of getting a health fair up and running may or may not happen this fall. So if you have it as 10 of 2021, you could probably start planning that actually probably before that, or have the ending date be after that. You could probably have it be 12 of 2021.
Anna, what else do you have here to?
That was it.
Good?
Yep.
Any questions at this time with this strategic priorities document? I would look for a motion to approve the updates and clarification.
So moved.
wait, this is a second.
Bill and Brenda on the second, right?
Yes.
Other discussion? Thank you for the clarification. A yes vote would be to approve the updated dates. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. That passes by a 6-0 vote. Consideration to approve a school perceptions to approve a school perceptions to do a community survey. Proposal and timeline enclosed or attached. Jeff?
Yeah, in the board agenda document packet, there is a proposal from School Perceptions to do a community-wide survey on a questionnaire that we would yet to develop, obviously, depending on what we want to put into that questionnaire. Probably more importantly, besides the proposal here that contains the cost down here in the document, it outlines what they would do for us. And I believe the district has used School Perceptions in the past. And there's all the references and all the different school districts they've worked in. Here's the meat and potatoes of it with the expense breakdown. of the development of the survey administration to the community members, getting the online results and access with the written reports and the plan of action. Basically, it's just over $4,000, and if you want additional services on top of that, they are billed out per time or per hour, and those are in this plan also. But basically, the base rate is just over $4,000 for the implementation of the survey to the community, that I think we could use as a building block for what we want to accomplish here also, and some of the things that are important to us. If you look at the timeline, Sue usually has a template of survey questions that they would give to us, and what I would suggest that we do is that we have a group of stakeholders that takes part in this, from board members to administrators to teachers, to help draft this survey over the summertime, and then look to finalize that survey at the August board meeting in August, obviously, and then eventually get that out to the community in mid-September. So basically the process, if you've gone through it before, is she starts off with a survey and then goes through a series of revisions with the working group. And then at some point, we will get a finalized draft back to the board and then send out the survey a few weeks later. I don't know if Bill and Bob or Brenda have worked with school perceptions in the past with Cannon Falls.
We have worked with them in the past, and I can't quite remember what we used them for. I think they did a survey when we were going to have a referendum or the bond issue, and they did a community-wide survey, and they were just very well organized. And I think the percentages of positivity, I guess, if you will, matched the voter outcome almost perfectly. So they really did a nice job for us. They told us this would pass based on information from the community, and I can't say enough good about them.
Yeah, I've used them in a previous district with that similar feedback, and they were within a percentage point of what they had predicted. And I've heard that nothing but that from other school districts. I've also used them in ways like this that we're intending to use to get feedback from the community on what they like and what changes they would like to see as well within the school district.
It makes a lot of sense when we're looking for the community to partner with us. And people have commented, we need the community input, or we need to have them measure how we're doing. It only makes sense to get some type of validation. And I think this would be a good opportunity for us.
Did we contact any other consultants about this project? Did we get any other bids, or was this the only one?
It's the only one that I've gotten so far. I figured since the school district has used them in the past, there's that familiarity. I know there's Morris Leatherman that is out there, but I haven't worked with them before. We can certainly contact them if you wish.
I think it would be good just to make sure the cost is in line. Having worked with survey companies pretty frequently, it seemed a little high to me. So I just want to make sure, but I'm not familiar with it in the education space. So I think it would be worthwhile to at least get an idea of what it might cost. My other concern with this is the timeline. Was that something they proposed, or is that a timeline that we asked them for?
They proposed it, and we tweaked a few different dates just to have it match up with kind of what we were thinking. Initially, when I first started talking to them during the action planning of this in the winter time frame, they had talked about getting a survey out by the end of the school year, which would not have been well received, I'm guessing, by the community at this point. And who knows going into this fall, what that's going to look like. Either there may not be a good time for it until another year from now. So the question is, do you want to wait that long as well? Is there a good time to put out a survey?
I just think from a general perspective, with the start of school, that's a hard time for a lot of families to do anything extra because they're trying. In normal times, it's busy, and I think if we don't go back to school as we would normally plan to go back to school this fall, I don't know that we're going to get the kind of input that we're looking for. But
I know
they're the experts. So if this is a timeline that they provided, I just think maybe pushing it out a month or two might make better sense.
We could certainly look into that as well. I think they're open to that feedback, but I know that they've worked in many different districts and they've usually had good timeline processes. I know the last district I was in that we used them, we did push out a survey at the middle of September and got the results back in October at a pretty healthy rate. And maybe this year could be different. I don't know.
I think volume wise, it would probably, like response wise, it would probably be fine. I'm more concerned about the information that we get from those responses, especially if kids are not back in school yet.
Yep. There is that factor.
Well, I would like, just from experience, I would like to see that school perceptions continue with us because we had such a good outcome with them as far as following through on everything, and I think they would be very good for us. The timeline, I would agree with Anna, it probably could get pushed back a little bit, but if it isn't, well, we've got such an unusual situation with the pandemic. But I do like them. I do like what they've stood for in the past with us. So
Maybe just even a couple weeks out would help, I think. Getting back to school, you don't want to run into the holidays or get too late into the semester. But I think even, maybe mid-October or the end of September rather than middle of September. And then have the last chance be closer to the middle of October might be more realistic.
So we're coming from this at different directions here. You're saying you don't mind having the survey done, but you think it should be pushed back just a little bit.
Well, I'm just agreeing with Anna that a little bit later and might be easier for families and
I would agree
get
with
into the
that.
swing of school, but not too much later because you don't want to run into the holidays and end of the semester.
Any thoughts on this, Katie?
I have to say the cost of it is a little bit higher than what I had anticipated seeing. So I guess I would like to see a couple more bids maybe, or just seeing if there's other companies out there. But I also haven't been a part of their system before, so I don't know like the background like you do. I do agree with, I think we'd get just a better response if it was just a couple weeks later into the year. It wouldn't be so hectic on parents and throwing them one more thing to have to fill out. So, but that's my thoughts on that.
Anything, Bill?
Well, I think the timing is going to be part of if we're going back to school or not. I think, you have until October 12th, so you really have a month to get it done. And so it depends on what you're looking to get out of this survey. If it's information that we need to use for the school year, I think it's important to stick with the timeline that we got.
Larry, anything from you?
Yeah, I got a couple items. Do we have any idea, the demographic we go after, is it just parents, or do we also go out to community members that don't have kids in school?
It goes out to everybody in the community. They do a cross section of everyone, not just parents.
So with that being said, how many are we imagining? I'm just looking at the additional postage. If we're going to send it out to 3,000 people or 2,000, we got to add 2,000 to this bid just to cover the postage side for the mailings going out and then the return envelopes coming in. Do we have an idea on total number?
A lot of it is done via mail distribution, and then each household gets one paper copy of the survey, is the way that they have done this in the past, and I don't believe that they have changed that.
Yeah, I see that.
And-
It's just the postage and the printing isn't included in these bids.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be included in other bids also, no matter what company you look at.
Yep,
And
yeah, I was just looking, if we're gonna send it out to 2,000 people, that's just $2,000 more dollars. If we're gonna put a return envelope in them to have them send them back, do we cover that cost also?
Yep.
There is information on here. It'll be $1.80 per survey. So having that information on how many they think it's going to be would be really helpful, because that is a pretty significant additional fee.
Okay, having heard all of this, we've got two issues. One would be, do we stay with school perceptions, or do we go out and get a second bid or even a third bid? And the other part would be, what about the timeline? So we don't have any approval. We do have a consideration on the table. What do you think? First of all, Bill's rationale and the timeline seems correct, but Anna's is the same, Brenda's is the same. If we delay it a little bit, we might get a more positive response, or at least a response in a very hectic world. So. Anything?
Well, there are a lot of good references for this group, but I have no idea how they compare cost-wise with any other group. So it might be a good idea just to get at least one other bid if there's someone else that has as good a reputation and has as much experience doing this.
And of course, could lay out some references in doing so. So what would we give to Jeff here? Should we, does someone want to make a motion to approve getting other bids and bring it back to the next meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Make the motion and then we can continue to talk. Anna's on that motion to
I'll second that.
seek other bids, right?
Yes.
Anna made the motion, Katie seconded it. Okay, further discussion.
I just had a question, Bob. I would imagine that when it was used before, that there were other bids that were presented too, and you had positive outcome. Do you recall?
I'm sorry, but I don't recall other bids.
Okay.
And I don't know if we had them or not, or if they just, we were in a position where we were very leery about how the community felt about our facility expansion. So I don't know that we just didn't reach out to them because there was a limited number that did this. Anna's got some experience on surveys, and there appear to be others out there. So I think it's incumbent on us to at least check the prices, if you will. Other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor to request that Jeff look for at least see what he can get for competitive bids for the same community survey. A yes vote on this would mean that we would ask Jeff to do that for us and get at least another bid. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote.
And I'll look to bring those back in June, which may solve the timeline issue anyway. So
the timeline is a separate discussion and a good discussion that we can, and by then you can have more input for us. Okay, next one, consideration to approve the C or MREA proposal. Jeff?
yes, this is our legislative helpers up at the Capitol. C, Cannon Falls has been with for a number of years. We've had a relationship with them, which C stands for Schools and Equity in Education. And MREA is the other legislative group at the Capitol on educators' behalf. And basically, it's just two pieces of information to see if you want to still stay with C, if you're happy with C, or if you want to look at an alternative group, lobbying group up the Capitol on our behalf. I've used MREA before in other districts, and they are a good organization that provide a lot of good information. This is my first year with C, and I've had a good experience with them as well. So really, this one's up to the board as far as if they want to continue with C, but I thought I'd provide an alternative for them to take a look at.
And as we look at that, what are we looking at for costs? Do you think they're relatively the same?
Well, if I find it here. For C, for the 2021 school year, are estimated to be at $2,306 for dues.
The decrease.
And then MREA, for the 2021, they are offering a 15% reduction for 2 years, and so their membership there. And so Cannon Falls would also be considered a new member, which would get a bigger discount as well. And why am I not seeing that? I saw that before.
There's a
1,053 for a 1 year or 3,013 for a 2 year.
Right.
And that 1,053 is an introductory rate. Their estimated annual dues is 2,339. The maximum dues are $2,500 annually, regardless of enrollment. So that 2,339 number is based on our enrollment, according to their proposal.
Yes. Is that one of the links there, Anna? I'm sorry, I did see those
Yeah,
numbers before, but I can't find them.
it's the title of it is 2021 intro offer. It was one of the links in the agenda, or it might have been a link from their information. It's a link inside the proposal. So if you click on the, at the bottom, there's a link to their brochure. That's where the pricing is.
Okay, I knew I'd seen it somewhere. I just couldn't remember where.
So they're very comparably priced after you get that that first year or first 2 years. You know, I like C because number one, it's a Cannon Falls alumnus who runs that program and owns the program.
Brad Linville, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I think they've been a good lobbyist for us and for districts in rural Minnesota as well. And I think their focus is on rural and smaller districts, although they have others as well. But I don't know, it's one of those things that's up to you folks, but I think they represent a good bang for our buck, and I'm sure so does MREA.
So Jeff, what do we get out of these memberships? Do teachers get any type of extra training? What comes out of paying these dues? What do we get out of it?
We get lobbying efforts up at the Capitol on behalf of each district in areas of increases to the percentage of revenue that we get every year, to more equitable education dollars on how much we're paying for bonds. The Minnesota Ag School Credit came from lobbying efforts. There's just a ton of things that both organizations do on behalf of school districts. And C is seen more as a metro area organization, although they do have schools, some schools our size, and MREA is seen more as an outstate type of organization. So, and with Cannon Falls being so close to the metro, it's kind of maybe a horse apiece. So.
Do we know where more of the HGL schools are looking at the C districts and I'm not seeing, well,
Cass and
Lakeside.
Manorville, Byron, and Pine Island are
Yeah.
in there. And because we all write up together to the meetings for those. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that may be in C, maybe Lake City.
Lake City is, yeah,
Okay.
Northfield, but yeah.
You know, I think originally that our thoughts were that as the metro area gets bigger and the outstate area gets smaller, that we don't have anyone working on our behalf as a rural county, if you will. And so that's kind of the area that they fit for us, because funding and influence are a lot bigger in the Twin City area than they are in outstate. That's just squeaky wheel kind of thing. So what would you like to see, or what would you like to propose or approve? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve one of these two organizations?
When does our current membership with C expire?
I believe it's at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th.
So we could potentially do a bit more research and maybe vote on this at our next meeting.
Sure. If you guys want to take a look more into it, you guys can table it for now.
You know, it's one of those areas, the total cost to our district seems to be about $2,300, $2,500. You can certainly do what you wish.
That's comfortable.
Motion? You can amend it, you can agree with it, you can choose one of the two, you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, I guess we've
Yeah.
always felt like C was good representation for us, especially with Brad Lundell being at the head of that. I don't know that much about the other MRE. What is it, MREA?
Yeah, MREA.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a recommendation at all, Jeff? Or?
No, it's just C is, like I said, C has been fine, and it sounds like it's been fine for the district. I have worked with MREA in the past, and they do a great job as well. Again, it's just a different option here. Like you said, Brad has been, you know, Brad's a Cannon Falls alumni, and he's done good work with the organization. And if you feel like that they've supported Cannon Falls, I'm fine with staying with C.
So if we don't join either one, does it affect our funding?
It doesn't affect our funding, but it kind of puts us behind the 8 ball a little bit as far as trying to stay up on top of what's happening at the Capitol and having a voice at the Capitol.
So they go to the Capitol on our behalf, or on behalf, like specifically, or like they're meeting with the representatives of our area, or are they just going for all of their members' goals?
Membership, on behalf of their membership group. And so it's just not Cannon Falls specifically. If there is something that would affect Cannon Falls financially at the Capitol, and if we asked Brad to go on our behalf, I'm sure he would, along with our area representatives.
To be honest, I just don't feel like I have enough information right now to make a informed decision about which one is better than the other. I personally would like more time, but I will defer to what the rest of the board would like to do.
So I was surprised by a lot of the names on the MREA list. I guess I was under the impression that C was a little more outstate, and I'm kind of impressed by some of the names on that list. And representing 230 districts is a lot. And some of them have some size. I mean, Red Wing's in here.
For which one?
Red Wing for MREA.
Right. I guess I'm kind of with Anna on this. I didn't dig too far into this one. I saw both the proposals on there, but I would like to maybe look a little further and if it's possible to table it till the next meeting.
Anything is possible, Katie, if you make that motion or recommendation. So tell me what you'd like to move.
All right, I'll make a motion to table it till June.
Second.
There is a motion by Katie and a seconded by Anna to delay our decision or table it until the following meeting. Correct?
Yes.
Other discussion? So a yes vote would indicate that we will table this until the subsequent meeting. Bob, yes. Brenda?
How about yes?
Anna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
That passes by a 6-0 vote.
I would just say too, I mean, we do have the introductory offer, so we could try MREA for a year or two and save some money with that offer, and we could always go back to see if we wanted to.
That's true too.
Your agenda, are you going?
Well, I think we need to have a comparison of who they're representing, and I think MRE really does do a wider coverage on the outstate.
Yeah, they do.
Are you gonna, are we
Tabling it.
are we committing to doing individual research on this, or would you like Lori to come back with any additional information? It looks like there's not a lot out there, but.
No, the information is in your packets, so
Yeah.
I don't know if you just needed more time to read the packets to make the decision, or what are you?
I was hoping to reach out to some of the member districts. Like
Okay.
Zumbrota is part of MREA, and I know some of their board members, and I'd just like to get some feedback from them on what they think, and maybe contact some of these other
Okay, so
districts.
you're not needing additional information, you just need.
No, same here.
No, not beyond what you sent. I just want to ask some questions.
Okay.
I wonder how we should approach this. If we individually ask school districts individual questions, I'm not sure that's what we're tasked to do. I understand what Anna's doing, but at the same time, should we just designate someone to do the research for us other than individually ask? We try to stay away from that unless it's board designated, I guess. So I'm not sure how we'd approach that, but we could all end up calling 8 or 9 schools and maybe duplicate services here. So what would you like to do when it comes to that as far as getting information?
I would be happy to be the point person if we want to just assign someone to do it.
Anyone else like to do that, or should we designate Anna to be our research analyst?
Well, I'm not sure that that's really the approach that we're looking for. I think we're looking for the bang for the buck, and they're both representing outstate school districts, and we're trying to save a buck also. And from what I'm seeing, they're probably very similar. So I think, what's the relationship that you have with the lobbyist? I mean, Brad's a alum. What do we know about the lobbyist for MREA? I think that's where we have to go, and it's going to be Jeff having communication with these individuals. I don't see the board really being that involved with the lobbyist.
It might be worthwhile. Cass and Manardale's on both lists, so it might be worthwhile to look at the members that are maybe members of both.
We did that also.
What's that?
We used both of them 1 year also. MREA came forward and they gave us an introductory rate. And so the former superintendents had used MREA and they were able to go to their conference at a lesser rate. So I'm not saying to choose both. Certainly there's no need to be, having two people lobbying for the same reason.
If we follow Bill's lead, then we would really designate Jeff to do the research for us, and maybe he could look into the schools that use both organizations.
What did Lori say, that we have used both? Or?
We have used both.
We did
And
it one time.
maybe because we were new members, she seemed to indicate that maybe we got a better deal those first 2 years, and it allowed us to have some flexibility on whatever activities.
Yeah, there were some conferences that MREA held that Beth attended. You know, I certainly don't know the value of having two lobbying for the same exact reasons.
But we did pluck some benefits out.
We did
Yeah.
at that time. Yeah.
Okay, we need to figure out what we're going to do. Should we just task our superintendent with finding districts that use both organizations and let him bring back information? He's had a background with MREA, and he's used C for this year for us. So doesn't really matter, folks. We just need to give Jeff some direction here.
So at this point, we're tabling it, we're correct, Bob?
We are tabling it, that's on there, but
And
we had to decide if we were doing further research or just using the information that we have to make a decision. So if we're looking for more information, I think it's prudent for us to seek that out, or else make a decision this evening. So we either task an individual board member to do some background, or we have our superintendent do it for us and bring us back whatever information he can. So I'm good either way, folks.
we have the relationship with C. The cost is basically the same.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the decision really is, and I don't think it's really at the board level to be doing research.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like a better understanding of the difference between the two organizations. That's what I don't understand from the information that they provided to us, what the difference is. If it's just cost, they do the same work, then I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but I don't feel like I have that information to make a decision.
Jeff, would you contact a couple of districts that use both? Cass and Manorville, you have some background with. That should be fairly simple for you. And anyone
Byron is also on both lists.
So folks that you know, and just get us some anecdotal information that we can use for the board for next meeting. Would that be okay, guys?
Yeah, I can
I'd
do that.
appreciate it.
Okay. Jeff, okay with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we've tabled it for another meeting, and Jeff will bring back some information for us. Let's move on to consideration to approve the 2021 1.0 FTE Sped teaching contract for Ellery. Tim, would you like to deal with this initially?
Sure. I had to give Jennifer Shapee lifetime membership to my backyard swimming pool for the reference for Ellery. So she's a brand new teacher. She is going to school in Wisconsin and finishing up here in May. So we have some licensure things to figure out, but I think she'll do a great job.
Jen, your name was mentioned here. You got some background on this or like to add anything?
No, not really. Just knew Ellery through my niece. So
good. Okay.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Well, I was say I would make a motion to approve. I know it's hard to find good people for those roles. So
Motion by Brenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, was that you, Anna? I was looking down.
Yes, that was me.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So a yes vote will be for the approval of the contract on the Sped contract for Ellery Aikman or Ackerman? One of those two. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
yes.
Bob? Yes, that passes 6-0. Okay, consideration to approve the updated elementary entryway project. Maybe Jeff can start us off and then Dave can contribute where he can.
Yes, if I can find where I'm at here. There we go. Earlier this year, the board reserved the Invenergy roof dollars that we had been using for next year in the hopes of doing an elementary secure entryway project that was discussed with the board and ultimately passed to use those dollars. We were tasked to bring back final numbers to the board in May or before May so that we could get moving on this project right away. And then obviously the pandemic kind of slowed things down, but here we are tonight. What we've done here, there's two different things here. One, you have the entryway project and the cafeteria project, which was couched as the one project for the secure entryway. And then the other piece, which you'll be voting on next, is the fire doors in the elementary, which is we've been written up for from the fire marshal. So in all actuality, we do need to move forward with that, but we can talk about that after this agenda item. Because of the pandemic, I'm bringing to the board, and we can continue down the pathway of doing the full project as it was presented earlier this year and then have it finished up. But I also have a different option for the board if you wish to consider to do a phase one this coming year using those reserve dollars for the elementary secure entryway, which would be basically the secure entrance and the reconfiguring of the office door entry into the elementary office. And then in phase two would be the following year, which would be 21-22, finishing up with the changing of the entryway into the cafeteria at that time. And the thinking behind this is that we're not sure what we're sure of, basically, when it comes to when the pandemic is going to end and what type of cash flow we would need for those years. And so if the board, again, wants to continue down the path of doing the full project, I am fine with that. We will continue to work that way. If you do wish to phase it out over 2 years, this is one option of doing that, and it still meets the goal of safety for our children, and then helping us also to plan better financially for the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Dave, do you have any input at all?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the project, whether we do it completely as one project or we phase it into 2 phases, it's the original proposal of what we've discussed in both facilities and at the board level. So really we're changing nothing but a timeline. And with the pandemic, of course, we kind of had a little bump there of being able to move forward as quickly as we wanted to. But, just to keep on track and to prepare for the future and continue on the path of safety, I'd like to be able to continue to move forward to get this project going. But really, ultimately, except for the phasing and the timeline, nothing has changed.
So Dave, with the phasing it at second 2, we don't have any risk of prices going up, inflation, putting it out a year on that phase 2? Do we have some confirmation that will stay that price?
Well, there's, unless we approve it, no, there's no guarantee, but that's a smaller part of the project. You're talking some doors and some frames, some engineering, there is a potential, but I don't see with it being a 2-phase project of any significance of going over the budget at all, but there is no guarantee, correct?
So Dave, I had a question when the presentation was done about the fire marshal and closing off that access into the cafeteria. Have we kind of ironed that out and feel comfortable with the entry and exit of the cafeteria?
Yep, correct. Did talk to the fire marshal. We're not limiting any exits. So he's okay with what we had planned and whatever the engineers propose.
So we do have the funds available based on our Invenergy commitment. And so the question would be whether we continue on because we've got those funds earmarked, or if we do this in 2 phases, just in case the current situation we're in here becomes, well, we need more money in our fund. Would that be correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, and so of the 2, we would tackle the elementary entryway at 85,000 and change first, followed by the doors. Okay, so that would be the first item on our list, and we can get further discussion if we can just get a motion and a second on it, then we can continue discussion.
I'll make the motion to proceed as one project. I think the intention here was safety by the board and the from Dave, and so if we're going to have to borrow money down the road, we're going to have to borrow money down the road anyway. So I think putting the safety of the kids in front of saving the money up front, I think makes more sense.
So right now we have a motion by Bill to do the entryway project, updated entryway project. Do we hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Was it the updated project, like the phase 1, or just doing it all at once? I just want to understand what we're
Well,
voting
at this
on.
point in time, we've got 2 agenda items, so we're just dealing with the entryway one. We can talk about our thought process on the fire door next. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the elementary entryway project. Other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. So is the phase 1 and phase 2, is phase 2 the fire door?
I can explain if you need some help
Yeah.
clarifying here.
Yeah.
The sheet that we have up right now, you're correct, is 2 phases, and that is just the entry. The phase 1 is completing all the doors to the entry to the office. The phase 2 is simply the entry to the cafeteria. So this is ultimately one project phased into 2. The next agenda item will be the fire doors.
Okay, so it's a separate thing.
Yep, and
Correct.
just to clarify, phase 1 also includes the preschool doors in addition to the kindergarten doors.
Okay. So
That's
which
correct.
doors are in
That's
the phase 2?
correct.
So phase 2 is a new cafeteria entrance.
Okay.
So with phase 1, we would still eliminate that front desk position, if that makes sense, because the new vestibule will be created.
And then where would they enter into the cafeteria?
During the hours of lunch, they would have to go through that vestibule.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So that would be so in this process, it would be for a potential of 2 years, or for 1 school year, you'd have to go through that if we did this 2 phase.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think Bill's motion was to do it the original way as one big project and not phased.
Yes.
Yep.
So Bill's motion, we got to get this right, and it takes Bob to figure this out because I'm kind of lost on it. So Bill has made a motion to do phase 1 in its entirety, correct?
Phase
Correct.
1 and 2.
And phase 2 together.
And Brenda has seconded that.
Yes, I seconded that.
So we've got a motion and a second to approve phase 1 and phase 2 in their entirety, correct?
Correct.
Any other discussion?
Hey, Bob, can I just add one thing? Just
Absolutely.
to make sure, does the motion include, that's an alternate on the phase 1 for the handicap accessibility? And I can code that to health and safety. It wouldn't need to be out of these funds, but the contractor would need to know that that's going to be included as part of their alternate for that project. So it include the entitled amount on that bid?
You can code that for health and safety?
Correct. I just need to know what we're going to tell the contractor. If we're going to go ahead with that alternate, and have them do the handicap accessibility if we're not going to include that.
Kind of a no-brainer, I would think. You know, we can code it for health and safety, and we need that handicap accessibility.
Yep.
In agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Other discussion, we can keep going with this if you'd like.
I have a
Otherwise,
quick question. I have a quick question. Was this another situation where we just got one bid? Or is this the only company that does projects like this?
No, I spent approximately 2 months. I met with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies. Had full proposal packets, did a full tour, and this is the only company that completed the packet and turned it into completion. Other people wanted just bits and pieces of the project. This is also the company that we used in the project a few years ago. They were the low bidder on the last project we did 3 or 4 years ago. So that's actually how we got the name of this company. The district had used them before.
Do you
So
know
no,
if
we
they
did
stayed,
meet. Go ahead.
sorry, do you know if they stayed at or under the bid when they did the last project?
They did. They stayed at or under the bid, and they actually did a fantastic job. And we've used them for several projects in between then for securing the buildings. They've been a great company. They're a really good company. And I'll tell you the benefit of them and why I do like them is not only do they do all the installation, but they're actually a manufacturer also. So it's going to be, you're going to be really hard pressed to beat this company.
Sounds good. Just wanted to be sure.
You bet.
so now we move on to the voting. A yes vote would be to approve phase 1 and phase 2 in their entirety, correct?
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Anna,
No.
Brenda,
Yes.
Bob, yes. That passes by a 5-1 vote with Anna dissenting. Okay. So number 6, consideration to approve the updated fire door project. Anything there?
Do you want me to start again and then have go into the details with Dave?
Please.
Great. As we mentioned before, this is a separate project, even though it is in the elementary, to update the existing fire doors, which are the original fire doors. And Dave can maybe talk a little bit more about what that looked like. We have had fire marshal orders to get those changed out, and we can put this under health and safety dollars for next fiscal year for this project. Dave?
As far as to kind of circle back to this project and give you information, this is the entryway that you have going into the 1st and 2nd grade wing, and then it's mirrored going into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade wing. And what it is it's a roll down fire door, literally, that never ever moves. It has a fusible link in it, so if flames get hot enough, it would melt the link. It would then drop down and close off that section of the building. It has 2 doors on each side of it that are basically access doors that do not get used. Kind of a weird design, but the bottom line is they've been written up. They do not function as designed. The fire marshal has an order to get them fixed or replaced. And the problem is per the fire marshal order, the only one that can put replacement parts or fix it is the manufacturer of those doors. And unfortunately, that company is out of business. So we would then have to replace them entirely with a new company putting new doors up there. The downside to that is, number one, they don't function unless the flames are 10 feet tall in the building, which is kind of too late in my book. The second problem is they're required by the state for annual testing. So we will have an incurred cost annually to be able to have these doors that never ever move. They've never moved since they were installed 25 years ago. I'd like to get away from that. I'd like to install regular fire doors that are metal doors that open like a regular door that are magnetic. Now the benefits of that is, going back to safety again, those doors can now be tied to a lockdown button in the main office or wherever we have lockdown buttons. So if we have a safety issue, we can now secure each wing by closing those fire doors. On top of it, those doors can be closed manually. They can also be tied to the fire system. Multiple benefits to be able to have regular fire steel doors. Met with the fire marshal on this. He absolutely loves the idea and thinks that that's exactly what we need to do. So ultimately, we're going to spend money one way or the other. This is the smart way to spend the money.
If this is a health and safety issue, just refresh me on where health and safety money comes. Do we pocket that into its own category, and then you prioritize what you need for health and safety for the upcoming year?
Yeah, it's health, safety, deferred maintenance, and the LTFM, which you've heard plenty about, has all been pooled into one essentially fund, long-term facilities maintenance, and the health and safety is within that. We need to submit a plan each year to the state, and once approved, we'll receive that revenue through the levy. So pretty simple process for us to do this. The bigger thing is that it's going to be required for us to get it done, not only for safety of our children, but to meet the fire marshal standard as well.
Mm-hmm. Other questions for either Dave, Josh, or Jeff?
Well, if I recall correctly, the items that fall under health and safety are pretty minimal. So those dollars, if you don't have a project, they just kind of, you lose the opportunity. And so I think it makes sense to take this step.
Yeah, health and safety is really narrowed down because if the state's focus is really mainly on so many buildings have got into disrepair, old buildings, aging buildings, poor air quality and the such, that health and safety is really finite on the abilities to use, and most of it's tied into long-term facilities maintenance, which may or may not really be considered a fire issue. Fire really is one of those things in health and safety that we can code there. So it really is kind of a win-win for us here.
Mm-hmm. So other questions? We can make a motion in a second and then return to discussion if you'd like.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bill to approve the updated elementary fire door project.
I'll second.
Second, Larry. Other discussion? Okay. A yes vote would mean that we would be continuing on with this fire door project. Bob, yes. Brenda?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 margin. Consideration to approve the 2023 athletic trainer proposal with Mayo Clinic Sports Medicine. Who will take that?
Our current contract with Mayo Clinic and their sports training department has expired at the end of this year. And this would be the next contract that they are proposing for us. And this is the exact same contract that we currently have with 5 days a week. And as you can see, there is an increase from 1920 into the proposed 2021, and then an increase after that for each year of the contract. Currently for this year, because of the pandemic, we were credited back, I don't know if Josh has the exact figures, but it's somewhere over $4,000 from our current contract this year because we didn't have spring sports. And so I think that helps offset some of the cost increases from this current year contract into next year's contract as well, with those savings from the spring. What I'd like to do is recommend passing the current contract as it is. mainly a lot to do with the health and safety of our athletes, and then review this on a year-to-year basis with Mayo, and especially with our new AD coming in, they can work with the coaches to make sure that we're maximizing the use out of this. And then if it make more sense to drop it down to 4 days or 3 days to realize some savings also, I think that would be a good conversation for the new AD coming in to have with the head coaches and the other coaches as well.
If possible, I would just like to pick Josh's brain a little bit as a basketball coach and what a trainer means to you as a coach.
Well, if I sit on the other side of the fence here and go with the coaching hat, it's wonderful. It's great to have one that's there 5 days a week and available to us, especially once you've developed a relationship with that trainer and have their trust and vice versa. I don't worry about my athletes anymore. If the trainer says they're good to go, they're good to go, even if they're whining to me. And if the trainer says they're not good to go, they don't go. And it's just as simple as that. It's kind of really cut down on the number of ankles I've taped. But I see the financial part of it too, where, for the amount of time for my sport in particular, it is really maybe a nicety to have for 5 days. But overall, I think most coaches would agree it's a great benefit. If the kids have anything, I send them down to the trainer. They take care of them. If there's any PT that's required, they take care of them. So I can even speak to you as a parent having kids that have gone through athletics here. It's probably saved us a couple trips to the doctor as well, because we've sent them to Beth or to Alex to have them evaluated and looked at. And if it's something that's serious and requires a doctor, we go to the doctor. If it's not, and the trainer can give us some PT, we do that. But so strictly speaking, from the coaching side, it's a wonderful thing for us to have in our district. And talking to other coaches, they're pretty envious of the amount of time we get with the trainer.
Okay, team. What's your fancy here? Like to see a motion and a second, and if you wanted to continue discussion, we sure can.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Katie on the motion to approve. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And Bill on the second. Okay, other discussion.
What happens if there's an injury or medical attention needed when there isn't a trainer on staff? If we were to go to 3 days, what does that look like?
They call the ambulance.
True?
It's happened with my kids. As a parent who's used the trainer quite a bit in the past couple years, I have to say that it is very beneficial to our athletes to have that right at school, and to know if we have to go in for further evaluation, or if what they're doing can be just remedied by, hey, let's take it easy today, and not have that pressure put on our coaches to make those types of decisions that they don't have that expertise in. So that's only, for me, I feel like the trainers we've had have been pulled in ways so many directions, because every sport needs them. And there's not always as much, there's more athletes to be looked at than the trainer can actually get to. But that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe add a little bit more on that from the coaching side too, is when the trainer's not available, all the head coaches for sure are all first aid certified. Yeah. They can provide some things to those athletes that do get hurt. In the meantime, you lose the supervision on the rest of the kids and the practice time, minor things really to do with those things. But definitely a certified athletic trainer is much more capable of doing the care on those individuals than we are, although we can tape them up and get them to where they need to go.
Okay.
Really sounds like that advice is as invaluable as the treatment itself on site, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
As a parent, Katie, you would say advice is you talk to them when your kid is down, right?
Yeah, yep, and they're very involved with the parents too. If you want, they answer emails. They connect with you if needed, if your kid needs that extra attention for a little bit. But it's just it's definitely a perk to have if your child is an athlete at the high school level. So
Okay.
and middle school. So
Other discussion? Okay, a yes vote would be to approve the 2023 athletic training proposal as shown. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. Passes by a 6-0 vote. Consideration to approve the 1921 Teachers Master Agreement. Everybody should have information in their packet, I think, and I will turn this over to Bill initially as the lead negotiator for us.
Okay, well, I'm getting back to my agenda here. Yeah, so I don't recall exactly when we started negotiations, but it's
It was
been
around June 1st because I hadn't started.
June. Okay. It's been a long time coming. We've had plenty of contact. It's been very, very much a lot of work on both sides. I mean, there's no doubt about it. One of the requests that you see in the language is speaking to paid time off, which I think in the corporate world, it's very common, but we haven't seen a lot of it across school districts. And that was something that the EA was looking for, and we had to work through it as a board to understand how it would affect the district. So a lot of effort went into that. When it came to the finances, obviously, the district, the board, the teachers union is aware of where the district's finances are. And so what we've agreed to is a 1% increase in year one and 2% in the second year. And so you see the total package figures at 2.508% and 3.162. That's including steps, lanes, longevity, and the Schedule C. So I wanted to thank the negotiations committee. Jeff, you really helped us out a lot, being the intermediary. And so the teachers union representatives, I appreciate us working together and look forward to really kind of continuing that basis in the years to come.
Katie, you served as an alternate on there. Do you have any comment or anything you'd like to add?
No, I felt that everything went really well. I mean, we had our ups and downs, and negotiation is never easy, and there's a lot of opinions and different things that play a role. And I think that everyone was super willing to work together and tried to come up with the best end product possible.
Mm-hmm. So we need to approve this. It's taken a while, and as far as we're into 20 already, so we're soon to be halfway through the contract period. So I would look for a motion to approve the 19 to 21 Teachers Master Agreement.
Can I ask a quick question?
Can we motion in the second first, and then we can continue on?
Yep.
Okay. Motion by anyone?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Bill on the motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Katie. Discussion. Anna?
So one thing that came up a lot during the strategic planning session that didn't make it into our strategic priorities document was to attract and retain quality teachers. And I'm just wondering if the compensation packages that are in this contract are comparable to other districts of our size and makeup.
Well, I think,
As far as retention is concerned, I don't think we've had a retention problem here for quite some time. And I think if we look back, we'll see that we keep our teachers. And if they're going anywhere, it's usually to the private sector. So as far as the retention of teachers, I think we can show that we do retain them. Bill, you had something?
well, I think that's been the topic of discussion all along. And like Bob said, retention hasn't necessarily been an issue. I think really as a district, there's something here as a community that is positive. And I think that's what I really felt over the years in getting back on the board, because education is really the bottom line. And the teachers are here, they do a lot. And what we're dealing with now is it's amazing what little things you're hearing teachers going over and above. And, when it comes down to it, we're getting a portion from the state, and we're trying to do our best to pay our teachers, keep the lights on. And that's really the goal in the end. So we've done comparisons. They've done comparisons, and we're really trying to stay in the neighborhood of our comparable districts.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to stay in the neighborhood, does that mean we are?
Well, and so that's one of the questions that we really were dealing with on the good negotiations, Anna, is that, what numbers do you use? And that's what we were trying to work towards, is having a baseline.
If we look at the funding mechanism that we all have options to pick up through the Department of Education and other resources, you'll find that Cannon Falls is still on the lower, I don't know, a fourth of a third, something on that order of the school districts funded in the state of Minnesota. So that, no matter what we like to pay the educators, we are certainly strapped by how much revenue that we're getting from the state. And even when we supplement it with the passing of our referendum, there's only so much we can do, and we're only receiving so much. Josh, basically correct?
Yeah, I think, we're essentially, you can only do so much with what you have from the state. I think that we're very competitive. I think that several of the documents provided from both sides showed that we are competitive in total packages. Now, whether or not individual steps and lanes are all the same everywhere, that's really a matter of district preference and where they decide to put funds on their packages. But I think overall, in total, over time, our Cannon Falls district is very competitive with other districts in the area that we'd be comparing with, mainly our conference rivals, as well as the locals of like a Hastings, a Red Wing, or Northfield.
In our benefit package.
Our benefit package has always been strong.
Yeah, I think that's where, in terms of comparing things, you have to look at the total package. If we're looking at strictly salary, there can be variations between multiple districts. If you start adding in the TSA, the health benefit packages, we're very competitive with other districts in total.
And there's more staff to us that were longevity in other districts.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the 1921 Teachers Master Agreement. A yes vote would be for the approval of the current contract, upcoming contract, if you will, one of the two. So a yes vote would be to approve the contract. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. That passes by a 6-0 vote. These things always take more time than we believe they will. And this year, of course, we did we changed the basis of the time off that we worked very hard on. The teachers brought us a proposal. It took us a long time to get that area cleaned up, but we did, to everyone's satisfaction. I think the biggest change in that agreement this year was that negotiation for the PTO. Normally this is a time to close, but I just think we owe it to conversation a little bit about the graduation. And on a personal level, I've attended 3 Zoom meetings, 2 with the MSBA, 1 with the Department of Education. And they've been long meetings, and they've tried to serve the communities of the state of Minnesota as best they can. But it opens us up to criticisms on one hand, frustrations on one hand. And I think we just need to have just a couple of minutes of discussion on it. And as much to acknowledge our administrators who have worked so hard on this and absorb some of the frustrations of our community. I'm over 20, but less than 25 years on the board, and I can't really remember something that's impacted so many people, from our educators to our taxpayers to our graduating class. It's an extremely emotional time for our community, for our parents, and for our educators. Some districts do things differently than what we have proposed that's on the table, but we are absolutely trying to follow the letter of the law as dictated to us, and I use the term dictated, by our governor, who's an educator himself. But I really think that we should just open up just for a couple of minutes. This can be contentious, so I don't want to make it that way, but it's been hard work for a lot of people in an area that we've never, ever had any experience in. Jeff, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. What, Bob?
What would you like me to say?
I just know that you work very hard on this, and it's not without a degree of frustration.
You know, we've put a lot of time and effort into this. Not only myself, but for sure my other administrators, the principals and the cabinet members, in getting something that is honoring of our seniors, and it fits inside a box about yay big that we've been given to work within. It's not perfect. And I don't think it's anything that anybody wanted, obviously, with that. My heart goes out to the families and the kids of the experience piece of that. I went back and forth a lot and listened to MSBA, to our school lawyer. You know, we've heard of legal ramifications, we've heard of insurance ramifications. I think a lot of it also that gets missed is the equity piece, in that, you know, if we do have kids, you know, if we would have had and went ahead and broken guidance and had kids walk up to the stage, there's an equity piece in that, where we have families that are scared still, that's just fine. Everybody's scared, and everybody reacts to it differently. That don't want to have, you know, the intermingling no matter at what level. And then we also have medically vulnerable students and adults in these cars as well, that I don't think people are thinking about in some aspects. And so all of that came into play when it was decided that, yes, this is how we're going to be running the graduation. And maybe Mr. Hodges can pipe in here a little bit, but there's still some small details being worked out with some of that to try to get a middle ground with some of the things that we still want to get accomplished and trying to be very creative in what we're trying to accomplish. So I don't know if Mr. Hyde has anything else to add into that piece as well.
Yeah, just a couple of things since the last thing I sent out to senior parents is I think we've got it worked out now so that instead of having one carload of guests per senior, we can fit 2 cars per guest. And one of the things that Deb and Kirsten have been working on is putting together kind of some parking passes. So every senior, when they pick up their graduation materials, are going to get 2 parking passes. So as seniors, you can decide who who gets those essentially. We're kind of thinking it probably should go to family members. So the guidance from the state is that you can park cars next to each other if windows are up. And if anybody puts the windows down or you think they're going to put the windows down, then we need to leave a parking place in between. So we're taking a bit of a middle ground there, and we're going to let 2 cars per graduate park side by side and then skip a person or skip a space. And we have exactly 174 spaces, which is exactly 2 per graduate, which is what we need. The other thing that I'm working with Dorothy O'Reilly on is seeing if we can, and this is not a perfect solution, but at least it is a bit of a compromise, is we're looking at when students come to pick up their graduation materials, we're planning on having a little setup so that they can get videotaped walking across the auditorium stage, and then we'll show those videos during graduation when each student's name is announced. So although they won't be walking that night, they will be walking across the stage with their cap and gown, and when they get to the other side, they can move their tassel to signify graduation. So we're trying to come up with some ideas to be able to honor some of those requests of parents and students and still fit within MDE guidelines for what that looks like. Again, this is changing day by day, and this is being formed day by day. It's changed a whole lot in the last 3 days. So if parents could please just bear with me for a little bit. I will be putting out some final guidance on that when we have students pick up their graduation materials. And thanks to Ms. Shapi from the elementary school, I'm borrowing their parent-teacher conference sign-up software to have seniors and parents be able to sign up for a time to come in to do that videotaping and to take some pictures in front of a backdrop for graduation. So like Jeff said, we're trying to do the best we can. We realize how much of an impact this is on parents and students. And if there was anything that we could do about it, we certainly would.
Thank you. Any board, anything?
Oh, just thank you for all the hard work you put into this. I'm glad we're going to have an opportunity to get our seniors across the stage. The majority of the feedback that I've gotten, that's the #1 thing I've heard, is that they just want the opportunity to cross the stage. So I'm really glad to hear that we're going to be able to do that for them.
Okay, team. Just
Yeah,
in
that's a
closing,
great idea, I think, to do it that way, because the guidelines clearly say that that students are not to leave the cars and walk across the stage, during the live ceremony. So that's really the only safe way it can be done. I think that's a very creative way to do it.
Thank you for coming up with these new ideas and being willing to change your ways to accommodate and meet a middle ground. I think that's all anybody wants.
when we, as we close here, if Emma has missed one point that I picked up when I was reading about Bryson Felton, I think, in the Red Wing paper, a wonderful article on him. And I did note that our speech team, they had something about the Red Wing had one all-state speech contestant. Emma, could you speak to that?
Yeah, so the Cannon Falls speech team actually has 12 all-state speakers who made the all-state speech team, which is pretty remarkable. We have a pretty large senior class on the team this year, so we didn't get to end the season like we had hoped, but it was a nice way to just kind of finish it up, and I know it meant a lot to the people who made it, so.
Well, if the representation that we get from Cannon Falls High School seniors is Bryson or Emma, we do a wonderful job here. So congratulations to the educators for that. If we have nothing else, we rarely have 2-hour meetings, but we had one tonight, but we got some things accomplished. I would look for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Anna, was that you?
Yep.
And
Second. I'll second, it's Brenda.
Brenda on the second. Any other discussion? All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I missed it again, didn't I? You all adjourned. We've got nobody opposed, so we're going to adjourn without that roll call. So we are officially adjourned. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your work.